I think I'm entitled.
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
If you're Iran right now and you're looking around at the fact that your conventional capability has been reduced, your proxies have been reduced, your main client state has been eliminated, Assad has fallen, it's no wonder there are voices saying, hey, maybe we need to go for a nuclear weapon right now. It's a risk that I'm personally briefing the incoming team on, and it's something that is the consequence, not of Iranian strength, but of Iranian weakness.
That is Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor to President Biden, and suggesting because Iran is seeing all of its proxies being wiped out, decimated from the leadership to the weapons, that maybe Iran thinks we're going to have to resort to a nuclear weapon. We're going to fire it up quicker than we originally had planned. That might well happen if we don't do something about it. But under this administration, Iran does not fear the U.S., and that means that you and your family and your loved ones here and around the world are in jeopardy because Iran does not believe we have a commander-in-chief. And they know we do have one coming in January. And they're thinking, what can we do between now and then to gain an advantage? Once again, Israel struck Yemen, going after Houthi rebels after they fired again missiles into into Israel. Iran, by the way, has not fired any missiles for some time, because Israel made it very clear, we will retaliate. We'll come after you. And they have no protection in Iran, no real protection for their facilities, their nuclear facilities, nor their Ayatollah. They think they do, but they know better. You want to roll the dice and see? Thanks for joining us. I do hope you had a most blessed Christmas and carrying over today for what is also known as Box Day. I've got John LeBoutier coming up later, New York congressman. And when I booked him for this date, he said, oh, great, Box Day. Do you know what Box Day is? It's not Boxing Day. It's not boxers, but there is a story behind it. We'll get into some of that, but more importantly, more current events with John LeBoutier coming up a little bit later. But again, I do wish that you had a most blessed Christmas and in preparation for New Year's. But on Christmas Eve, I did a special program serving as host for Vic and Ken on that program, and we tried to take politics completely out of everything. If you were too busy wrapping presents, going somewhere, welcoming friends and neighbors, I suggest you call up and look at the podcast or listen to the podcast that was put up under Vic's program, Vic Priscelli, for that date, Christmas Eve. I think you'll enjoy it. In fact, I know you will. But now we've got to get back into politics in the real world. And the real world involves bloodletting and punishment, and also some outrageous pardons and commutations by Biden. So here we are, December 26, 2024, nearing the end of this year. Reminding you that when we're on the air, we are streaming video. How do you watch? You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can go to Larry Connors USA, Rumble, or Facebook. You miss anything, they're later posted as a podcast at NewsTalkSTL Podcast, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. The situation we have now with Iran and its proxies beginning to come unglued, basically. Their leadership is in tatters. Who wants to step up to be the next leader, to be the next one assassinated by Mossad or whoever goes after them? They talk about being a martyr, but then when it comes to the guys that like to sit inside and watch other people strap on suicide vests, they're thinking, I don't want to be that guy. And the praise to Allah will only go so far, because when you're gone, you're evaporated. General Jack King was on Fox News. He's an analyst for them, and talking about where Iran is right now with everything that is happening.
Iran is back on its heels in a way it's never been in 44 years since the supreme leader and the radicals took over the country. Both of their proxies, their main proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, have been decimated. They lost their strategic platform, Syria, which was the main platform for them to be able to dominate and control the Middle East. They are defenseless at home. The military's always been weak, Griff, and the investment has been rockets and missiles for the conventional military, and obviously the same for their proxies. But the reality is, Israel has stripped away their air defense system, so the leadership in Tehran is not protected from an air attack. Their nuclear sites are not, nor are their rocket and missiles production sites, some of which Israel destroyed on the last attack. So they are very, very vulnerable, and they know it. So what option does Iran have left? Move to a nuclear weapon as soon as possible. They've always wanted a nuclear weapon, been in pursuit of it for decades. Why do they want it? For the same reason other countries like them have wanted it, to guarantee the preservation of the regime.
But for Iran, it would not be so much guarantee the preservation of the regime, but to use it against Israel, to wipe Israel off the face of the map. And, of course, then to preserve the regime, because they will be hit back hard. You heard him mention that they have lost what they had in Syria. When Bashar al-Assad fled Syria and ran to Russia for protection from the rebels taking over Syria, Syrian troops also abandoned their posts along the Israeli border. Israeli forces immediately took over those positions. They have high ground looking down into the city of Damascus 40 miles away, making Damascus a prime target if Syrians try to start causing direct confrontation with Israel. They've chased the Houthis back from the Israeli border in Lebanon. They have shut down the Hamas attacks, but yet they're still blowing up tunnels. They're finding miles of tunnels, despite all that they have done. And they're still holding hostages. We don't know how many are alive. And if they want peace, it's been made very clear. Surrender all hostages, dead or alive, put down your arms. Then we can talk. But the nuclear issue with Iran, which got its start, really its kickstart, and basic giving approval for Iran to have a nuke, came in the Obama administration. But they were claiming, no, we know they're just going to use nuclear energy to bring their people out of the Stone Age, when in fact they actually want to bomb you into the Stone Age. We repeated that because it's a single, simple fact. General Jack King, again, dealing with Iran.
Iran is pursuing this nuclear weapon covertly at two sites, Saranjan and Parshan. Those are sites that have never been inspected by the IAEA ever. So that is ongoing. The current administration is aware of it. The incoming administration is aware of it. What are the options? I think I know where Prime Minister Netanyahu is. He wants to take down these nuclear sites sooner rather than later, and he doesn't trust Iran to dismantle the system if we use coercive diplomacy. That is the other option. Send a message to the Supreme Leader. President Trump leads that message, maybe signed by Netanyahu, and tell them he has an ultimatum. Dismantle your sites by a date certain, submit to inspections by the region, by the United States, by IAEA, UN inspectors. If you don't do that and you don't stop your malign activity in the region, then we'll cripple your nuclear enterprise using kinetic strike. That, I think, is what's in front of us. I think the incoming administration, in talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu, are working the options, and they'll eventually present those to President Trump for decision.
But in the meantime, we still have Biden on watch. And Biden is yet to say anything over this most recent strike of the Houthi rebels firing into Israel and Israel's retaliation. He's just basically ignoring it. I will tell you what he did do. He's denounced Russia's latest attack on Ukraine, declaring the wave of missiles and drones outrageous. He's denouncing Russia going after Ukraine. He's ignoring the Middle East. But to that reason, that's why Israel needs to do its own work. And when they hit the Yemen airport with the most recent Israeli airstrikes, it turns out that the head of the World Health Organization was at the airport. One of his crew members was injured. At least two reportedly killed at the airport. Not sure if they were linked to the WHO. But they're going after the Houthi rebels, and of course they're going to put, just like Hamas, put their weapons in the midst of civilian populations or structures that you don't think they would want to attack, such as an airport. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "We will continue to target the Iranian axis of evil." And he made those statements shortly before the first missile hit. It's all tied to Iran. We know that. And again, Biden is just silent on that point. You know where there's also been silence lately? The story about the drones, and that supposedly they came from a mothership off our East Coast, from an Iranian mothership. That story that Congressman Jeff Van Drew posted, I haven't seen anything at all to back it up. But just last month, a DOD expert said, we do need to be more aware of what's in our skies.
Unexplained drones leave millions on edge across the country. One former defense official recently issued this warning about the government's secrecy around UFOs.
Excessive secrecy has led to grave misdeeds against loyal civil servants, military personnel, and the public, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. If we approach the UAP topic in the same way as we, as Americans, have met other challenges, we can restore our faith in our government institutions. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth, and I also believe the world deserves the truth.
Well, but we began this program, you can't handle the truth. We begin every day like that. I'm not sure what Americans can handle. And then look at what Joe Biden did just before Christmas. Not only shocking, but obscene. Every federal prisoner on death row got a commutation or a pardon. Guess he just felt that the other three that he did not do just would go too far. I'll explain that in a moment. That's because of publicity. But families who lost loved ones, to those on federal death row, he basically spit on the graves of their loved ones.
So President-elect Donald Trump is now slamming President Biden's 11th hour commutations of nearly all federal death row inmates. Trump posting on Truth Social that once he's in the White House, he will, quote, direct the Justice Department to vigorously pursue the death penalty to protect American families and children from violent rapists. We will be a nation of law and order again.
Meanwhile, an outpouring of outrage and disbelief from relatives of the victims of those death row inmates set free by Biden. One person whose sister was fatally strangled is now speaking out, telling the New York Post, quote, why does he need to get special treatment? He's just going to risk other people. What justification does Biden have for doing this? I want to have him explain to us, to our faces, why he chose to give them mercy when they didn't give other people mercy.
By the way, that one case they were talking about there, the family, the man convicted of killing their loved one also had been convicted of raping and killing an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old. Do you think Biden even knew the name of the cases, or they just put them in front of him and he decided to sign them? Well, he was cognizant enough to not give commutations for the man for the 2018 mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue that left 11 dead, nor the Boston Marathon bombing, nor the guy convicted of the Mother Emanuel Church mass shooting, killing 9. And he's proclaiming that, I just felt the death penalty is wrong and I want to put an end to it. Well, to that extent, it will be coming back. Carl,
this is a morally bankrupt act by the outgoing president. Think about this. He takes all but 3 of the people who are on death row for federal crimes involving murder, and all but 3, and says, I'm going to commute your sentences, but I'm going to allow the death penalty to be applied in these 3 other high-profile cases where we might know the names of the victims because they include things such as the guy who bombed the Boston Marathon. I mean, why say the death penalty is wrong in those 37 cases and right in the other 3? At least he would be morally consistent if he said, I oppose the death penalty, even though it is a law established on the statute books of the United States by an act of Congress signed by a previous president of the United States. I'm going to ignore that law, but at least it would be consistent. I hate the death penalty. Nobody should have to be dealt with in that way. But no, we're going to have some where the death penalty will apply and others where it won't. And you're right. He cannot mention a single victim, I suspect, of a murder that he has now commuted the sentence to life in prison. I mean, this is astonishing. And to do it on the eve of Christmas, think about those families who lost a loved one and how they're going to be dealing with that trauma during what ought to be one of the most beautiful moments of the year.
And, of course, he has no problem with abortion, killing innocents, true innocents. Donald Trump sent out a Merry Christmas to the radical leftists and saying all of those who got their sentences commuted, go to hell. That direct. In the next hour, words from Ronald Reagan we should hold close. Before this hour is over, Senator Rand Paul and his Festivus list of wasteful spending, and it's pretty extensive and weird and wacko. But first, former New York Congressman John LeBoutier. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
My sponsor, Wellington Environmental, has helped thousands deal with hazardous materials. Hospitals, offices, schools, even homes. Here's something new. Wellington now offers dustless blasting. This is just like sandblasting, but without all the dust and emissions. Wellington uses everything from ground glass, walnuts, corn, even dry ice pellets. One university had Wellington remove their parking lot striping because dustless blasting is fast and it does not damage the concrete. So as a business or homeowner, I'm sure you could use this process. Industrial tanks, swimming pools, graffiti on buildings. And in fact, Wellington is blasting a Texaco station that will be revised as an historic building. Check the website for details and photos. WellingtonSTL.com. WellingtonSTL.com. True story. I was with Jay Ackerman, and a waitress came up and began praising Ackerman Toyota. She was afraid she might need a new car, so she had gone to Ackerman and was told, you don't really need a new car, just new tires. Obviously, tremendously relieved and thanking Jay over and over. Another example where Ackerman Toyota did what's right for her and will for you. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. John Beal knows it right after a hailstorm. New roofing companies start popping up everywhere. But the Small Business Administration reports 96% of them go out of business within the first 5 years. So how good is that warranty? John Beal started in the roofing business, helping his granddad and his dad. Always offering the best roof, best price, best guarantee. John Beal Roofing, not some fly-by-the-night operation. Call my friend John, 1-800-NEW-ROOF, 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
This is News Talk STL.
Oh, smokestack lightning, shining just like gold. Oh, don't you hear me crying? Woo,
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. And John LaBoutiere, New York Congressman, former New York Congressman, and also author of the book, certainly going to new fame now after their wokeness that took place. Harvard Hates America. John, first of all, I hope you had a most blessed Christmas.
I did, Larry, and I hope you did too. And happy day after, happy Boxing Day. Not that we celebrate that here in the United States, but any excuse to have a holiday.
Yeah, I hear that. Especially if you get a box with some nice liquid in it that you really enjoy tasting. Let me put it that way.
Is that of great interest to you, Larry? I didn't know that.
Well, that's one box I look for on Boxing Day. Yeah, you're right. We don't do it here in the U.S. It really started back in Europe just the day after Christmas to still give one more gift, or for workers who didn't get anything the first time. I mean, have you ever given gifts on a Boxing Day?
No, I haven't. But I was over there once in 1986 for Christmas and the week after. And I guess maybe we did something. I don't really remember. It's almost 40 years ago. But it's a big deal in Great Britain. I was in London, and it's as big as Christmas.
I thought I'd also heard it's still very big in Canada. Is that correct?
Well, probably. I mean, they're part of the United Kingdom, so it makes sense.
Okay. So there are a lot of things going on. We're moving closer to the inauguration of Trump. And from the Hill, as you know, more left-leaning than straight up, they have a statement here. The Constitution provides that an oath-breaking insurrectionist is ineligible to be president. The plain wording of Section 3, 14th Amendment. In other words, they're suggesting maybe his vote should not be certified. Now, is that bordering on so-called insurrection?
Well, I don't think any of that's going to happen. I mean, I think we sort of went through that with the Colorado case, whether he could be on the ballot this time. Supreme Court last summer ruled that he could, or last spring, and that's sort of over. He was never charged with insurrection. Obviously never prosecuted, therefore. So I think that's sort of done. Now, I would tell you, though, we are entering a month of January that's a little ironic because next Friday, a week from tomorrow, will be January 3rd. That's the day Congress convenes. And it is very possible that the Republicans cannot pick a speaker that day. Obviously, Mike Johnson's running to be re-selected as Speaker, but there are 3 or 4 House Republicans who have not committed to voting for him. If they get into one of these Kevin McCarthy 15 ballots spread out over a few days, that will run into 3 days later, Monday, January 6th,
the 6th.
when the presidential race is supposed to be certified by the joint House and Senate. But if there is no speaker, they can't proceed with that.
Johnson's even made that point, saying, "Hey, you guys keep messing around. I won't be here to help you get the everything certified." But of course, someone else could be. But he's already making that statement as well. I'm important to the process still. His position is maybe not him, but the position is.
Well, the position, it doesn't matter who the speaker is,
right.
But they cannot proceed to any other business in the House. That's the rules until there is a speaker. So, it doesn't matter whether he gets it. To get to 218 votes is the issue. And look how long it took to do that with Kevin McCarthy. And it took quite a while to do it with Johnson a year ago, October. And then this budget shutdown threat last week has really rattled some Freedom Caucus members like Thomas Massey from Kentucky, Andy Biggs, Andy Harris. Several of them are not committed to voting for Johnson. So if Johnson doesn't get to 218, I don't know that there's any other Republican who can either. And hanging over their heads is 3 days later is this certification thing.
And I have not seen, and I've not seen, maybe you have, I've not seen anything from Trump regarding Johnson moving forward as Speaker.
No.
You haven't either, have you?
No, I haven't seen anything official. Now, it was written about last week when Trump pushed for this shutdown thing and he wanted the debt ceiling taken out and we don't have to extend it anymore and he can just spend unlimited amounts. He wanted that in this bill that happened a week ago so that he wouldn't have to deal with it when he's president. Well, it didn't happen. Johnson couldn't get that passed. I think Trump is probably unhappy over it because, Larry, I already anticipated this. 6 months from now, 8 months from now, the debt ceiling, we're going to run out on that thing. We're going to run up against the ceiling. And Congress is going to have to vote to increase it. And I can tell you, Republicans don't like doing it in either the House or the Senate. And now the Republicans are going to run both the House and the Senate starting next Friday. And what are they going to do? They're going to be the ones that have to vote to increase the debt. And they don't like to do it, but they're going to have to do it. And the Democrats are going to sit off to the side and say, hey, you're in charge. You come up with the votes. Don't look to us.
Well, to
and
that
Trump
extent,
anticipated this.
Yeah, and to that extent, Trump, when he was first in, said we're not going to do any more CRs, but the first year he did, and he did again. I mean, we now have one that's the bill which they did pass takes us only into March anyway. What do you expect to happen come March?
More trouble. And when you said when he got in and didn't want CRs and had to do it, you know, in all fairness, it was a Republican House and Senate for his first 2 years.
That's right.
And he couldn't even get it with them, or they couldn't get with him. I think it's going to repeat itself repeatedly throughout the next 2 years. And the reason is our party is very split between MAGA, Freedom Caucus, they're all the same, MAGA, Freedom Caucus, Tea Party types. They're sort of the rebels of the GOP. They're the majority now of the GOP. And then there are regular conservatives. And you need both joining together to get things done. On this thing, on this debt issue, they are not together. They don't see it the same way, which is why they always turn to the Democrats for some votes. And I don't think they're going to get them.
I saw a piece the other day that pointed out that the Republicans have to realize it is not the Republican Party anymore. It is the MAGA, the Trump Party, and you need to get in line and remain there. There are Republicans balking, and some of them have their own sacred horses they want to protect. But the vote's going to come down, and we're going to see everything unveiled. Now, when Trump pushed through the CR, it would say, we just do it this one time to help our military. But we're at $36 trillion and climbing.
Yeah. Yeah, and the single biggest increase in the national debt of any president was during Trump's 4 years. It went up $5 trillion in 4 years. Now, it's not just on him. I mean,
Right.
The Republicans don't like cutting spending. They talk about it. When George W. Bush was president, his first 6 years, he had the House and the Senate, and he was president. They increased spending more than any president up till that time. And so the spending is out of control under both parties, and no one really has the guts to put the brakes on.
All right, so let's talk about Musk and Vivek and what they can do with the Doge thing. They can point out the issues, but they can't really change it. It goes back to Congress for any changes on these expenditures and cutting back, correct?
Totally correct. And they have said, those two guys as individuals have said, oh, yeah, we can cut $2 trillion out of the $5 trillion federal budget. And I laugh when I hear it. Larry, I don't think they can cut $20 billion out of $5 trillion.
But you have no doubt there's a lot of waste in there that could.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. But to get it out, in the number one place where the waste is, I hate to say it, but it's true, is in the Pentagon. In the procurement of weapons is the biggest waste in the federal government, the way the system works, which is congressmen and senators say, you know what, I want to build the F-35 fighter jet in my district. I want parts built in my district, right? Other parts in this guy, blah, blah, blah.
Everybody's protecting their constituency and their territory.
Right, and they foist this on a Pentagon leadership, the military part of it, who says, we don't want that F-35. We'd rather have something different. And we are building as a country weapons that our war fighters don't want.
Well, we're going to see how it shakes out. Let me give you the last 20 seconds here to sum up what you see happening.
Well, I don't think the DOGE thing's going to produce much. We've had this before. When I got elected in 1980 and Reagan got elected that time, he picked Peter Grace, big businessman from New York, set up a thing called the Grace Commission, just like DOGE, to root out wasteful federal spending. A few weeks, months into the Reagan administration, you never heard about it again. And I don't think by next summer, DOGE is going to even get a story written about it because there's no way.
I'm out of time, but as always, thank you, John. We will do it again, sir.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've got a phone number for you and a website where you can take a free, quick survey to learn how to use artificial intelligence, AI, to put your company on a fast track to the future. Here's the number. It's a 636 area code, 636-689-0545. 689-0545. This is PRI Global. And recently, the St. Louis Business Journal named PRI Global as a leading IT consulting company. 25 years working with hundreds of companies, several Fortune 500, locally and around the world. PRI Global has its own AI lab to develop what's best for your company. Take the free survey and be on your way to the future. 636-689-0545. 689-0545. Or go direct priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. Want a special gift for someone who enjoys a good cigar or premium whiskey? Head for Lit Cigar Lounge in the district of Chesterfield Valley. You'll also find amazing, unusual lighters and ashtrays. You can't decide? Get a gift card. When you finish, walk a few doors down and enjoy Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta. The pizza baked in a coal-fired oven. Select from the menu or design your own. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta. This hour of Larry Connors USA brought to you by my friends at Renewal by Anderson. And listen to this. Renewal is having a killer of a sale. Buy any window or door. Get a second one, 50% off, 0 interest, no payments for 18 months. Renewal has the most 5-star reviews of any full-service window company. Simply dial pound 250, pound 250, and say the key word, windows.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
You know, I got a lot of problems with big spenders in both parties. And here's the thing. Everywhere you look, you find more of this stuff. $1 trillion. That means we found a lot of waste. But it's everywhere. It's in all the big departments, in the Department of State, It's in NIH. It's in the National Science Foundation. And people wonder, why does it exist every year? We have this Department of Doge. Are they going to be able to get rid of it? Well, the only way to get rid of it is to spend less money. So if you give the National Science Foundation $4 billion one year and then you increase it to $8 billion, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that you're going to get more waste, not less. This has been going on since the 70s, but it has exploded. But you have to be willing to cut spending for the overall department. NIH will have more waste if you give them more money. They spent $3 million studying what kids do when they look at ads for food on Facebook. So they had a whole bunch of kids look at ads for food on Facebook, and that was $3 million worth. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars to drill holes into cats' heads, spin them around rapidly, and study motion sickness. Sounds more like animal cruelty than it actually sounds like an experiment, but the list goes on and on.
That is Senator Rand Paul, Kentucky, out with his Festivus report. Festivus, of course, highlighted in the Seinfeld episode when George's dad decides we're going to have Festivus instead of Christmas. Well, Rand Paul took that term and decided to make it part of his wasteful spending report every year. Now, you heard John LeBoutier a moment ago say, I do not think the Doge team, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, will be able to cut $2 billion out of the budget like they claim. I don't even think they'll be able to cut $1 billion. I don't know. I'll go with John's judgment at this point, but I do think if enough pressure is applied in certain levels, then we might see more of it come down. I'm not saying we'll get $2 billion, but anything at this point would help. And the bottom line is you got to quit spending. Quit spending. And who wants to give up the pork that they have on their plate? That's the issue. One of those experiments, as you were hearing Senator Rand Paul talk about, was actually, as he said, drilling holes in the heads of cats and then spinning them around to see if it would make them dizzy and lose their orientation. I guess because cats are so good about quickly adapting, as if they were falling, they tend to land on their feet generally. But at the same time, he said it almost sounds like animal cruelty. I think many would agree. And here's another case of where they were spending money on something similar. And this apparently funded by the Department of Defense under the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. This was a $10 million expenditure. Researchers at the University of Pittsburgh sliced open the backs of male cats to expose their spinal cords and then inserted electrodes to fire off electric shocks while the incision was still open to cause the cats to have an erection. $10 million for this. The report claims the cats were sometimes shocked for up to 10 minutes at a time before their spinal cords were severed to paralyze their lower bodies. Still another, I'm telling you, in listening to this, is not just horrifying. It sounds like something you would expect being carried out by the Third Reich on Jewish prisoners. But another highlighted shocking cat spinal cords, forcing them to defecate marbles that had been inserted into their rectums. Almost $11 million for this. Do you not consider that wasteful spending? Of course. $11 million is way short of even $1 billion. But it's a start. And it's $11 million that could have been dumped into the Appalachian area and helped the people in that area during their disaster relief. Would it solve everything? No. But you take all the money we spent on illegals and housing and providing materials for them, there's more money that could have been spent on Americans. I saw a clip over the weekend of a woman who had just left a Costco store. Now, I don't have a Costco card, but I've been in them before. When you go out with your basket, first of all, you have to have a card to show that you are a Costco member. You pay a membership to shop in their store. So then when you go out, you must show your Costco receipt and everything. Well, apparently there was a foul up at the line, those exiting the store, because a woman or man had just a piece of paper, didn't have a Costco membership or anything else. And they weren't sure what's going on here. They took them they stopped the line to take this person over and evaluate, and they were an illegal who had been given a slip of paper by the government saying you can go to Costco and you can spend this amount, something north of $1,000. Their grocery wagon was loaded, while others are scrambling around trying to get the cheapest things they can and buying in bulk if it helps for their family. This guy was given $1,000+ of your money to go buy. Rand Paul also looking at the National Institutes of Health. And again, this is another issue dealing with cats or kittens, a hydraulic table that tilts, spins in all directions. Some kittens have their brains removed while still alive. He said $1.5 million spent on that. To cover the national debt, Rand Paul pointed out, the money to cover the national debt, which is now above $36 trillion, Americans would have to pay $892 billion in interest alone. Just interest, $892 billion. 2034 interest payments could reach $1.7 trillion at this spending level. So there's every reason to look for ways to cut it out. So a question to Rand Paul, what about Doge?
Do you think your tradition ends this year? In other words, is this the year that Doge eliminates the need for you to go through and make this list because they've done it over the course of the intervening 365 days?
Ultimately, it takes Congress. Congress has to get rid of the spending. Doge can point out the spending problems and the waste the same way I've been pointing it out. But the reason it's not eliminated is they don't have the votes to get rid of the spending. So I am very hopeful that Doge will draw attention to this the same way I've been drawing attention to it. But I'll give you an example. About a year ago, there was a chip spill, a bill to subsidize microchips, semiconductors in the United States. Well, in that bill, they doubled the size of the National Science Foundation. Now, the National Science Foundation is the one that's famous for doing a study on whether tequila or gin makes people more aggressive. So they fed fish, half of them tequila and the other half of the fish gin, and they decided which made the fish more aggressive. That's the National Science Foundation. Most of the terrible, wasteful projects, the crazy stuff and experiments going on is National Science Foundation. In the CHIPS bill, all the Democrats and half the Republicans voted to double the size of the National Science Foundation. So why is there more waste? Because the idiots in Congress keep giving them more money.
He made a point there, didn't he? I do remember years ago, I'm on TV still, and I'm reading this story about how Texas A&M, not singling them out, but they were the ones receiving this funding, federal funding. And after their study of their project, they found that, yes, the more young women drink alcohol, the more promiscuous they are. And I'm thinking, every high school boy knows that. You don't need to spend millions to find that out. Department of State spending this time around, Rand points out, $4.8 million on Ukraine influencers. Anybody that would go on their TikTok or internet network and proclaim support for Ukraine, they were getting money from the Department of State to help them keep their program alive and going. And that doesn't, not only going to get into PBS, NPR getting federal dollars. And then in Las Vegas, a place where he points out a city synonymous with high-stakes gambling, investing $12 million American tax dollars in pickleball. A $12 million grant to build a 5.4-acre, 30-court pickleball complex in Las Vegas. Not knocking pickleball players if that's what you want to do, But I would like to say, give that money to me for gambling. Let me use that for gambling instead of pickleball. I'll find a way to get that fund in, and then I'll quit complaining about money being wasted. One thing we all know will happen under the Trump administration. All of these green energy leftists will soon see their green money and their God altar destroyed. And in fact, if you've been watching the Netflix series or Amazon, I can't recall which one now, Landman with Billy Bob Thornton, he delivers a statement about clean energy. If you haven't heard it, you will. That story when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, and don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now, open, Napoli Kirkwood.
This is Larry Connors, USA. Larry Connors, USA.
Do you have any idea how much diesel they have to burn to mix that much concrete or make that steel and haul this out here and put it together with a 450-foot crane? You want to guess how much oil it takes to lubricate that thing or winterize it? And its 20-year lifespan, it won't offset the carbon footprint of making it. And don't get me started on solar panels and the lithium in your Tesla battery. And never mind the fact that if the whole world decided to go electric tomorrow, we don't have the transmission lines to get the electricity to the cities. It'd take 30 years if we started tomorrow. And unfortunately for your grandkids, we have a 120-year petroleum-based infrastructure. Our whole lives depend on it. And hell, it's in everything. That road we came in on, the wheels on every car ever made, including yours, it's in tennis rackets and lipstick and refrigerators and antihistamines, pretty much anything plastic, your cell phone case, artificial heart valves, any kind of clothing that's not made with animal or plant fibers, soap, hand lotion, garbage bags, fishing boats, you name it. Every thing.
And Billy Bob Thornton, we had to do some tight editing on it. He's an oil man in West Texas, Permian Basin. That's where I grew up with my dad working in the oil field. Midland, Odessa, Pecos, that entire region. And he's making it very clear to a woman who knows nothing, thinking that they have windmills out in some of these oil areas. And she said, why would you use windmills? She said, we're off the grid out here. So we put the windmills up to generate enough electricity to run our oil pumps. But then all the money that goes into building them, and then you got to dispose of them. It is a TV series filled with a lot of F words and a few others. But the point being made there is that you cannot walk away from our fossil-based fuel at this point, and yet many still will. With the Trump administration, we're going to move faster away from that green God altar. Over the weekend, many of you might have seen The Wonderful Life. It's a Christmas classic, obviously. Deals with, it's a 1946 film, which follows George Bailey thinking about taking his own life because there's been a big foul up in money and he sees no way to get out of it. Well, an angel comes to him and tells him that, things can be better. And he insists, no, I think I'm be worth more dead than alive. Well, the angel tells George, look at all that you have done, and shows him a grim version of a world where he never existed. And that's when George realizes he does contribute, has a good life, and once again wants to be alive. But the interesting part, if those of you were watching on Prime, according to a report I've seen, they did an abridged version of the film. The moment when the angel tells George he has to earn his wings cuts abruptly to George happily running through the streets after he's reconciled his life without showing what led him to accept things as they were, things as they are now, and things as they could be. They just decided to shorten the most important part of the movie and how important you are in your life now and forever. Why did they do it? Would it have been for time? Shouldn't have been. They don't run on any time schedule. They can run any program of any length they want. You want my view? I'm glad you asked. My view? They just thought that was, a little outdated. So we'll just pull that part out. Then don't even bother showing it. Coming up, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas admits maybe an open border was not such a good idea, but he's not blaming Biden. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcast of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Beal knows that new roofing companies can look big and trustworthy on the internet, but the fact is 96% of new roofing companies go out of business within the first 5 years. John Beal has a reputation for excellence, reliability, plus lowest cost, best roof, best guarantee. Those here today, gone tomorrow roofers, they can't match John Beal. For home or business, trust my friend John. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. There's no pizza like Napoli Brothers Pasta and Pizza in the district Chesterfield Valley. That's because in Napoli, your pizza is in a coal-fired oven. One taste, you're going to want more. Grab a gift card, good for all Napoli locations. And a few doors down, enjoy the atmosphere of Lit Cigar Lounge. High-end cigars, single-barrel whiskey. Before you leave, pick up gift cards for family and friends at Lit Cigar Lounge. True story. I was with Jay Ackerman, and a waitress came up and began praising Ackerman Toyota. She was afraid she might need a new car, so she had gone to Ackerman and was told, you don't really need a new car, just new tires. Obviously, tremendously relieved and thanking Jay over and over. Another example where Ackerman Toyota did what's right for her and will for you. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. Here's some expert advice from McGuire Moving and Storage. If you have a home or business move coming up, you need to book now. Most moving companies are booked 6 to 8 weeks out. So call McGuire now, get an on-site estimate, set a date. McGuire has 85 years of experience and just won the Spire Quality Award. I can personally testify McGuire goes above and beyond to help the clients. McGuire Moving and Storage, McGuireMoving.com. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, now open in the district of Chesterfield Valley. Napoli has the only coal-fired pizza oven. That means an incredible taste you cannot get anywhere else. So enjoy a unique pizza at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district. And then walk a few doors down and enjoy premium cigars and drinks at Lit Cigar Lounge. There's a perfect way to end the evening. Napoli Pizza followed by Lit Cigar Lounge. A winning combination. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. I can tell you how to get a free quick quiz to see how artificial intelligence can boost your company's potential. You go to PRIGlobal.ai, PRIGlobal.ai. St. Louis Business Magazine listing PRI as one of the leading IT companies, and PRI has its own AI lab to develop what your business needs. PRIGlobal.ai, PRIGlobal.ai.
This is News Talk STL.
You want to add
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers.
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
Looking back now in hindsight 2020, if we had known that irresponsible politics would have killed what was clearly a meritorious effort and a meritorious result, perhaps we would have taken executive action more rapidly.
Members of President Biden's own cabinet now admit the administration could have done more to secure the border. DHS Secretary Mayorkas still blaming irresponsible politics for the flood of migrants, but finally confessing Biden could have taken executive action sooner.
Yeah, irresponsible politics began when the Biden administration got inaugurated. They campaigned on this, and they started that on day one with all the executive actions. Even Mayorkas himself bragged about the amount of things that they have reversed under the previous administration, the Trump administration, which was securing the border. So when I hear him say something like irresponsible politics, it began with him and his boss. You know, he could have done nothing, and we would have been in much better shape when it comes down to border security. So it's offensive to hear him pointing the finger and blaming Republicans in politics. He has no further to look than the mirror and the White House on what happened on this border the last 4 years.
He nailed it. He nailed it. That is Chris Clem, former Border Patrol section chief, responding to Mayorkas. And Mayorkas was saying, well, you know, looking back, hindsight now, we realize maybe we shouldn't have. You can see it on a daily basis. You didn't need to wait for 4 years to realize, Houston, we have a problem here. We've let all these illegals in the country, and they're running rampant. Gangs are coming in. They're bringing in drugs. They're assaulting our children. They're poisoning them with drugs and basically attacking and running crazy and getting away with it. And we deport them, and they come back, and nothing's done with them. But he says it was a meritorious project. Meritorious. We were going to have more immigrants in our country. We have a system for that. Legal immigration. For all these so-called asylum seekers, that also exists under our legal immigration system. But you can't just throw the gates open and say, everyone, anyone, come on in. Unvetted, unchecked, not only for threats of terrorists, but diseases. And we're fighting them all across the nation now. There was nothing in their decision that made any sense. And yet they clung to it and kept pushing it in the face of the American people. And the leftists and the blue cities and states that were sanctuary cities and states, they were all applauding, all in, until they realized now every state is a border state. And they realized the chaos it brings, not just along the border where there's small Texas towns or El Paso, but actually into the metro areas, Chicago, New York. And all Biden had to do was just not tamper and mess with what Trump had in place. Remain in Mexico. Just leave that in place. Extend it when it ran out. But he had campaigned on an open border. Do you remember the debate, the primary debate, when he and the other candidates are on the stage and they were asked, do you think it should be a crime to come across our border? And all of the progressives immediately shut their hands up. Yes. And Biden's looking left and right thinking, which way do I go? Well, I better go with all of them. He put his hand up. And then once in, he's got to deliver on that promise to the progressives. And our Border Patrol agents became basically babysitters. And children were being brought in at enormous numbers, and we were not sure if they were being brought by relatives or cartel members. Not sure if they'd been bought and paid for, bought from their own family in Mexico, or stolen, or orphans. And we just let them in. sent them away, and we don't know where they are now. And you cannot get an answer out of this government, the Biden administration, where these kids are right now. 300,000+ children, closer to 500,000 more than likely, and they don't know where any of them are. Well, we know they did not show up for their court date because when they came in, they were given a slip of paper and said, on this date, you need to come to court and we'll discuss your case. Well, if they're a toddler, they rely on an adult to get them there. And maybe the toddler's uncle, aunt, whoever that really might be related to them, and I've been living in the shadows. I don't want to get involved in this. So the toddler's not going to show up. My bigger concern is that those who were turned over to pedophile dens and what's happened to them. And toddlers, one thing, and the other thing being young men and women who are basically slave laborers and sex objects right now until they're no longer of any use. Then they're thrown out like trash. Biden, on his way out, has signed 50 different bills into law. 50. I'm not talking about the commutation pardons he gave the other day. I'm talking about 50 bills. And I will tell you now, I'm not against 3 of them in particular. I'll come back and explain that in a moment. But what Trump is saying, and his office has made it very clear, that on day one, when he takes office, he's going to sign a host of executive orders on day one. Many will reverse policies undertaken by the Biden administration, restore Trump past policies, and implement new ones. Stephen Miller, Trump's pick for White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, said deportations of illegals will be the president's first priority. Axios compiled a list of actions Trump said he would take, ranking the list based on mentions. And the list includes, aside from deportations, settle the Russia-Ukraine war, close the border, cut federal funding for schools that teach CRT or have a vaccine mandate. But back to rounding up and deporting illegals, aside from closing the border is one thing, but to get the illegals out of our country, especially if they are a criminal element. Once again, former Border Patrol Section Chief Chris Clem.
Well, I can tell you right now that my contacts that are still in the Border Patrol, that are in ICE and are associated with all the federal law enforcement, they are just chomping at the bit for day one because they know that they're going to be allowed to go out there and do the job that they swore to do. I mean, the handcuffs are off of them, and they're going to put the handcuffs on the bad guys. That I think that executive actions will be made by this administration. They're probably ready to go. The ink is probably dry, just waiting for his signature to go ahead and begin finishing what we started, which means securing the border, finishing the wall where it makes sense, getting the technology and the resources in the hand of the Border Patrol agents, as well as sending a message to the criminal aliens and those that are here illegally in the United States to be on the lookout, because ICE and those associated with federal law enforcement are going to be looking for those national security and public safety threats. They are ready to go, and America deserves this, and America voted for this, and they're going to get what they asked for, because I think that this DHS Secretary coming, Governor Noem, with Border Czar Tom Homan, is going to be ready to go, and the people that are going to work for them are excited.
Good. Get her done. They're obviously going to look at those already incarcerated. They're already in shackles, put cuffs on them, get them out of the country. And Trump has said any country we send them back to, if they don't take them, we will cut that country off from any trade and federal dollars and anything that they might want that we could help them with. He said they will end up taking them and then rounding up the others. And he said ground zero will be Chicago. Now, I mentioned that Biden signed 50 different bills into law, and I said there are 3 of them I agree with. This is not dealing with the clemency and pardon issue. These are 50 additional bills. One eliminates a loophole that allows members to continue receiving checks while exhausting appeals. That got exposed in the investigation of Senator Bob Menendez. Remember, found guilty in July of accepting bribes in exchange for using his political influence. Well, he's been getting federal checks. So now they're saying, no, if you're indicted and you're found guilty, you cannot continue to get federal checks while you're on appeal. That stops. Common sense. The other one brought forward by North Carolina State University, hazing. Hazing on many college campuses requires federally funded higher education to disclose hazing incidents to campus or local police. They can't just hide it. They've got to disclose it or they lose federal funding. Good. And the other one, you would have thought this was already in place, but it's not. Designating the bald eagle as our national bird. It's been assumed that for 250 years, but it's never really been written in as a law. And if you recall, originally, Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be our state bird, our national bird, saying it's smarter than the eagle. But it doesn't have that majestic look to it, does it? It looks majestic on your plate at Thanksgiving, maybe, but not compared to the bald eagle. And points out that the bald eagle remains the leading insignia for all branches of the U.S. military. So it is now officially the national bird, as it should be. Houthi rebels have been hitting Israel again, and they're getting fired back upon, the wrath of Israel. Iran has been mostly silent ever since Israel started firing on their country in retaliation. But General Jack King on Fox News had this assessment.
Iran is back on its heels in a way it's never been in 44 years since the supreme leader and the radicals took over the country. Both of their proxies, their main proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, have been decimated. They lost their strategic platform, Syria, which was the main platform for them to be able to dominate and control the Middle East. They are defenseless at home. The military's always been weak, Griff, and their investment has been rockets and missiles for the conventional military, and obviously the same for their proxies. But the reality is, Israel has stripped away their air defense system, so the leadership in Tehran is not protected from an air attack. Their nuclear sites are not, nor are their rocket and missiles production sites, some of which Israel destroyed on the last attack. So they are very, very vulnerable, and they know it. So what option does Iran have left? Move to a nuclear weapon as soon as possible. They've always wanted a nuclear weapon, been in pursuit of it for decades. Why do they want it? For the same reason other countries like them have wanted it, to guarantee the preservation of the regime.
The regime, the Ayatollahs, and so forth. But those nuclear sites, Israel knows pretty much where they are, and Jack King says they are vulnerable.
Iran is pursuing this nuclear weapon covertly at two sites, Saranjan and Parshan. Those are sites that have never been inspected by the IAEA ever. So that is ongoing. The current administration is aware of it. The incoming administration is aware of it. What are the options? I think I know where Prime Minister Netanyahu is. He wants to take down these nuclear sites sooner rather than later, and he doesn't trust Iran to dismantle the system if we use coercive diplomacy. That is the other option. Send a message to the Supreme Leader. President Trump leads that message, maybe signed by Netanyahu, and tell them he has an ultimatum. Dismantle your sites by a date certain, submit to inspections by the region, by the United States, by IAEA, UN inspectors. If you don't do that and you don't stop your malign activity in the region, then we'll cripple your nuclear enterprise using kinetic strike. That, I think, is what's in front of us. I think the incoming administration, in talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu, are working the options, and they'll eventually present those to President Trump for decision.
And Trump will make a decision. Biden's not making any decisions. He continues to support Ukraine against Russia. And a more recent event, he's simply ignoring. We had a jetliner Azerbaijan Airlines shot down out of the sky the other day. They believe it was hit by a Russian rocket. They had 67 on board, including the 2 pilots. Both pilots killed. 38 of the 67 on board died. The interesting facts around this case, it was traveling from the Azerbaijan capital to the capital city of the southern Russian Republic, Chechnya, and was trying to make an emergency landing. It was way out of its range, 200-plus miles. It got on the other side of the Caspian Sea for some reason. For 90 minutes, according to flight tracker radar, the plane is entirely out of its area. How it got there, why, it wasn't sure. A Russian dispatcher said the crew was having trouble with its control system, and then later that an oxygen tank exploded in the passenger cabin, causing passengers and the pilot to lose consciousness. They had their own reserve. That would not have happened to the pilots. Some of those survivors were children. There appears to be, at looking at the damage of the plane, when it crashed fairly intact, from the wing forward was destroyed, but the wing back, those in that part of the cabin mostly survived. They're saying it came shortly after Ukrainian drone strikes hit southern Russia. There had been drone activity in the area for the past times, and the Russian airport was on a flight path that had been closed Wednesday morning. Why they continued, or if they still didn't understand where they were, we may not know. But most experts now say they think it was brought down by a Russian anti-aircraft system, that it took the plane to be an invader, a drone. The fog of war certainly could happen. The other day we had 2 of our pilots shot out of the sky. They both landed safely, but they were shot by friendly fire. American forces shot them down. Those kinds of areas, everything is at stake. Coming up, Ronald Reagan, with some words that bear repeating in this day and age. And before we're done, the joy of Joy Behar and a Christmas gift you wish I'd left unwrapped. That's still to come. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Wellington Environmental knows this is a rough time for many people, just struggling to make ends meet, and here come the holidays. Wellington is an advisor to the Salvation Army Gateway Citadel. They need more bell ringers, and Wellington has some spots in South County you could help fill. If you sign up 6 or more to ring a bell for at least an hour, Wellington Environmental will make a customized sign to sit on top of the red kettle for free. Put your company name, your team name, your family name, whatever you want. Call Wellington, 314-644-4930, 644-4930. WellingtonSTL.com does the same thing. WellingtonSTL.com. Ring a bell this season and help others. One of the greatest pleasures in life is giving something special to someone just because. Vincent's Jewelers can help you, and you should know that Vincent's has helped raise almost $2 million for local charities. Vincent's Jewelers, St. Louis's premier, full-service, locally owned jewelry store. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day for new items. VincentsJewelers.com. My only jeweler, VincentsJewelers.com. I want you to know that McGuire Moving and Storage is Silver certified, which means McGuire has a quality reputation helping older adults move local or long distance. And something else to know, Josh McGuire, president of McGuire Moving and Storage, is the only certified moving consultant in Missouri. I'll tell you, once you met Josh, you're going to know your move will be easy. And I fully endorse McGuire Moving and Storage. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL.
I was born in the rain on a Ponza train underneath the Louisiana moon. I don't mind the strain of a hurricane. They come around every June. The high black water, a devil's daughter. She's hard, she's cold, and she's mean. But nobody taught her it takes a lot of water to wash away New Orleans.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
But as long as we remember our first principles and believe in ourselves, the future will always be ours. And something else we learned. Once you begin a great movement, there's no telling where it'll end. We, the people. We, the people, tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We, the people, are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. We, the people, are free. But man is not free unless government is limited.
Unless government is limited. The words of Ronald Reagan, as true now as they were then. And, of course, his words came long before all the electronic communications we have now and the ways to basically censor the conservative voices. That's been ramped up even more so with George Soros purchasing 200-plus radio stations across the nation in 40 the biggest markets. And do you think they're going to use those broadcast stations to put out clips like that from Ronald Reagan or anything that talks about freedom and controlling and limiting government and the people being free? Of course they're not. They're also not going to make a complaint about the Zuck bucks that were spent across the nation. Zuck bucks, of course, is what Mark Zuckerberg did in 2020. George Soros did it as well. And all the other social media giants and their leadership, Jeff Bezos, they were all doing it. Dumping money on top of money on top of money into the Democrat campaigns, and especially Joe Biden's campaign. I'm looking at a piece in the Federalist written by Jacob Grandstaff, and says, it begins, Republicans should use their control of the federal government to prevent oligarchs from influencing elections through nonprofits, as Mark Zuckerberg did in 2020. The American Confidence in Election Face Act, known as ACE 2023, would ban states from using private funds to run elections, along with a host of election integrity measures that would limit fraud and restore confidence in American democracy. Zuckerberg and his wife dropped something like $420 million into the 2020 election cycle. Just this one guy, including $350 million into county election offices. You had the same thing happening with George Soros. That's why you had so many George Soros elections across counties where the new district attorney was a George Soros-aligned district attorney. Liberal. No bail laws. In fact, no jail laws if we could avoid them. We have had basically lawlessness accepted over the last 4 years. There's a piece of video that I saw the other day, and I'd actually mentioned it to you before I saw a follow-up on it. 2-3 women walk into a nice-looking department store, pick up shopping bags as they walk in. They go through the store and start filling things up, just throwing them all in. This is in California, where they knew that as long as we did anything over $900, we're free to go with these bags, come back and do it again. But Prop 36 in California changed that. And they got arrested. And they're in the back of the patrol car, and they're being recorded on the police camera recorder. One is telling the others that the law's changed. This is now a felony. And the woman said, what do you mean it's a felony? This is a felony now? They didn't know it. You think they would have stopped them? Maybe. But even in California, they're realizing we can't continue to do this. It gets back to we want Americans to have freedom, but we must have laws. Once again, Ronald Reagan.
There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts. Nothing is less free than pure communism. We must keep up our guard, but we must also continue to work together to lessen and eliminate tension and mistrust. It's still trust, but verify. It's still play, but cut the cards. It's still watch closely, and don't be afraid to see what you see. You won every battle with every call you made and letter you wrote demanding action. Well, action is still needed. This national feeling is good, but it won't count for much, and it won't last unless it's grounded in thoughtfulness and knowledge. An informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world? We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is free. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise, and freedom is special and rare. It's fragile. It needs production.
It does need protection. And of course, at the time he was making those statements, a lot of the older folks were saying, these kids coming up, they're going to ruin the world. They're going to ruin it. They're going to destroy everything. Well, actually, those kids coming up didn't do it. But then they began to think that their kids might do it. And another generation thinks the younger generation is still going to do it. But that was all before woke and everything was being shoved in our faces, and George Soros type money and Zuckerberg money being spread to basically put lies in front of our children, much less pushing them to have transgender surgery. Basically tell them they're more than two sexes, two genders. I don't know what Ronald Reagan would think about where our world is now. But when you listen to him again this next time, he does know the value of history.
So we've got to teach history based not on what's in fashion, but what's important. Why the Pilgrims came here, who Jimmy Doolittle was, and what those 30 seconds over Tokyo meant. If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. Let's start with some basics. More attention to American history and a greater emphasis on civic ritual. And let me offer lesson number one about America. All great change in America begins at the dinner table. So tomorrow night in the kitchen, I hope the talking begins. And children, if your parents haven't been teaching you what it means to be an American, let them know and nail them on it. That would be a very American thing to do. I've spoken of the shining city all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace.
Harmony and peace is certainly possible. But we have some that don't want harmony nor peace. And we have many that in our schools now, even at our universities of higher learning, they don't want to teach anything but anti-Semitism, wokeism, and push more DEI. Well, the DEI programs are going to come to an end when Trump comes in. They're already doing it. Many corporations walking away from it, realizing this blew up in our face. Disney pulling a transgender character out of a movie that they'd already put down in production and were preparing to release. They realize wokeness is making us go broke. The battle doesn't stop here. It just means that we've gained a stronger foothold. But you must continue, as Reagan said, trust but verify. Always cut the cards. By that, if you're playing poker, someone else is shuffling. Before you start shuffling, somebody needs to cut the cards to make sure they haven't put an ace on the bottom of the deck. And we have to do it together. And this mandate that Trump got, popular and electoral college vote, says America is willing to turn the corner. But there are those out there still wanting to destroy. Oh, the joy of Joy Reid yet to come, and the Christmas gift I'm going to open for you, that you're going to be upset that I am going to open it up. But before that, pharmaceutical companies and COVID. Stand by, please.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Question: are you looking to unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence for your business? I want you to meet my friends at PRI Global, named by the St. Louis Business Journal as a leading IT consulting firm. 25 years helping local and worldwide companies. PRI Global has a free survey to determine where your company stands in your AI journey. You simply go to priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. And I also have a phone number, so get ready to copy that number. And I'll remind you that PRI Global has its own AI lab, creating, adapting, developing, pushing the boundaries for what AI can do for you. Here's the number, 636-689-0545, 636-689-0545, or visit priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. Here's great news. Napoli Kirkwood is now open. So that means fine dining right in the heart of Kirkwood. So you have the original Cafe Napoli in downtown Clayton, Napoli 2, Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, plus Napoli Brothers Pasta and Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, and now adding Napoli Kirkwood. What a great place to dine. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. Renewal by Andersen sponsoring this hour of Larry Connors USA. And let's be honest, most window companies are pushing cheap vinyl windows, adding bells and whistles to make them sound great, but renewal windows are twice as strong. You do not want to go cheap when you can go with quality and get the nation's best warranty. Check the website, rbastl.com, or dial pound 250, pound 250, and say windows.
This is News Talk STL.
Not a yes, sir, not a follower. Fit the box, fit the mold, have a seat in the foyer. Take a number. I was lightning before the thunder. Thunder, thunder, thunder,
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I have heard that you yourself have not taken the vaccine yet. Why not?
So I am legally not allowed to take the vaccine at the moment. We of course consider to make that possible. It is more important for us that our co-workers and partners get vaccinated.
That is a very interesting story. It was 2021. The name of the CEO apparently linked to a big pharmaceutical group, but the name was not present in the piece I saw it on. But what he was saying is that, well, by law, we're not allowed to use our own vaccine. And we're not allowed to be used as test subjects, which will come up in a moment. You got to stop and think, wait a minute. You want everybody to take your vaccine, and yet none of your employees are not only not taking it, they're not allowed to? Let's go back into that again, more detail.
It is more important for us that our co-workers and partners get vaccinated.
Why are you not legally allowed to take the vaccine?
Because you know that there is a priority. The vaccine is not allowed to be taken outside of this priority list. And what is also important, we were even not allowed to participate in clinical trials because per law it is not possible to include company people into such trials, which is really fine. But now we have to deal with the more important challenge that we need to ensure functionality of our whole company, of our teams, and therefore this is needed, and I think we will find a legal and fair solution for that.
Well, it may be a legal and fair solution for your company executives, but if your company executives are not allowed to take the very drug you produce, the vaccine, and yet everyone else is supposed to take it? Is it that the Moderna vaccine cannot be taken by the folks at Moderna? The Pfizer vaccine can be taken only by Moderna people. Moderna people take the Pfizer, or are they mixed? Are they the same thing? I mean, the story's still out as to how much of this was done by the military. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be diving into a lot of this. And while we don't want to be pushing, quote, retribution, I don't. Maybe you do. And I understand if you want. But I do want reckoning. And I want justice, which may equate to retribution. I want an Anthony Fauci in particular, and others like him, in front of a judge and jury and absolutely find out what they did and did not do and what they knew was harmful, and they didn't care as long as they're getting their pharmaceutical check. Maybe we should use some of these on on death row inmates in federal prisons. Why not? If you missed us talking about the Rand Paul Festivus of wasteful spending in the previous hour, I strongly encourage you to go back and listen. And some of the things that were being done to animals with a cost of $10 million in some cases, to the extent of even drilling holes in the skulls of cats, opening up their spinal cords. It sounds something like out of a horror movie. It is, but you paid for it. I know a lot of us and those listening, you're not big on PETA. I understand that. I'm not either. Because they go overboard in so many things. If you're a vegetarian, so be it. It just doesn't mean I have to be a vegetarian. Just like if I want to eat steak, I'm not telling you that you have to. And PETA to me has become people who eat tasty animals. I do fit PETA in that case. But drilling holes in cats, severing their spines for, quote, medical research, I know that's done to rats and mice, but when you start getting to the four-legged animals that really are the generally accepted pets, I know there are folks that have mice, hamsters, and so forth, But it reaches a point that has people backing up, saying not for that. And yet that's exactly how the money was being spent. Did they need to use animals for some of these drugs in the preliminary testing? I don't know. I assume they probably did. But for the CEO saying, well, I can't take it, we're not allowed to. I can understand that they cannot be part of the test sample because they might use their own experiences and words to give more approval to it and weight to it than they should. But once it has been, quote, approved for the general public, at least on an emergency status, should you not have to be taking it? And don't forget that Joe Biden did issue a pardon, a full pardon for those drug companies. They cannot be sued because of what they did during COVID. Did he get something in return? That's an immediate, worthwhile question. We also know that he commuted the sentences of nearly every federal death row inmate to life in prison without the chance of parole. 37 out of 40 death row prisoners in federal facilities now will not face a death penalty. He left 3 on. The 3 he left on was the guy convicted for the 2018 mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. The guy who went into the Mother Emanuel Church, shooting 9, killing 9. And, of course, then the surviving guy convicted in the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. Those probably had the most attention. Maybe that's why he did not decide to give them commutations of their sentence. Because it makes no sense when you read his statement, Biden, saying, I'm more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level. And he did, all but for 3. He can't fear political repercussion because he's not going to be running for office again at all. But he did. And those who lost loved ones, in one case, a young woman beaten, raped, killed, after the guy had already raped and killed an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old. They're not deserving of life in prison. They're not deserving of life, period. And for them, the death penalty would be way too easy anyway, the way we do it. Joe Biden, I'm reading from Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, said Joe Biden is using his last days in office to spare the worst monsters in America. These killers were sentenced to death by a jury of their peers. They had a lengthy and burdensome appeals process. And he's now calling for a congressional and Department of Justice investigation into the legality of these commutations. I don't know that it's going to go anywhere. I don't know that Trump can do anything to overturn it. Generally, once it's granted, it cannot be pulled back. So Biden is commuting these sentences, and a commutation does not mean their sentence, or rather their conviction, is overruled. It just means they're not going to get the sentence they were given. So they're still guilty. What he has done is issue pardons for the biochemical companies, the pharmaceuticals, and his son, and we're waiting for a list of many more that want to be on that list. He hasn't done it for himself yet. Is it possible that he still in these closing days will step aside and let Harris become president, at least for a couple of days, and she will issue him a pardon? I mentioned earlier there's a Christmas gift I'm going to unwrap for you. You're not going to like. You probably wish I'd kept it under the tree. But before I do that, MSNBC Joy Reid has a new conspiracy theory. Obviously, at the center of it is Trump. But there's more.
An interesting development that may have changed the calculation a little bit today, that we found out that Trump, our would-be strongman, is in a sense answerable to a bigger strongman, not Vladimir Putin, Elon Musk, who also allegedly, at least according to reports, has lots of conversations with Putin. What does that do to the calculation on how Americans should deal with Trump?
Yeah, I think that's a very good place to start. I wrote a piece a few weeks ago called The Submission Chain, where I tried to explain that voters might like Trump, but Trump is submissive with respect to Musk, and Musk in return is submissive with respect to Putin. So if you vote for Trump, you're voting for the little guy who admires a bigger guy, who in turn admires a still bigger guy. And that's what we've got now. We've got this cluster of oligarchs, some domestic, some half domestic, some foreign, who are the real power in our country. So in terms of how to resist, I think you have to start by doing what you were doing in the last segment, which is name it for what it is, which is an international oligarchy.
Yeah, an international oligarchy, according to MSNBC Joy Reid. The speaker there was Timothy Snyder, author of the book Tyranny Lessons from the 20th Century. And he's just fawning all over Joy Reid as they're presenting that MAGA people, you did not vote for Trump. You voted for Putin. By the way, universities are sending out notices to their foreign students. The January 20 inauguration coming. Some of the schools, we have something like 1.1 million international students enrolled in our college university campuses. They're getting notices early that you need to return early from winter break to avoid a travel ban that Trump might put in place January 20. So a lot of these students weren't going to be coming back till maybe the end of January. Now they're trying to book flights and get back to New York, California, whatever they can do. Cornell University has students traveling abroad, advising them return before the January 21 start of the spring semester. Because, according to the university, a travel ban is likely to go in effect shortly after the inauguration. Yeah, it's back to the Trump haters. Trump hates and does not like people of color. He doesn't like women. He doesn't like students. They're going to start recycling all this all over again. All right, to the Christmas gift that I left under the tree for you just for today on Box Day. Here it comes. You know the name Cori Bush. You know she ran to be elected back to Congress to be part of the squad. It didn't work out the way she wanted. But she is now saying, I'm not done. I'm not done. And in fact, in a piece she did, an interview with Politico, she said, I can defend everything I did. Maybe what I should have done is turned over a few more tables. And then she adds, running for office again is not off the table. I did not expect to be in Congress only 4 years, so I think I will run again. The squad will keep fighting. As you know, Wesley Bell, St. Louis County prosecutor, won her seat. He will be going to Congress. He's leftist, but he's not near as left as Cori Bush. He will be a better representative for that district and maybe for the nation. But Cori Bush is saying, anyone who underestimates our power is severely mistaken because we're not going anywhere. I will always be squad. I'm not going far. There it is. That Christmas gift you didn't want to unwrap. It's there. Now it's open. Oh, and by the way, Jamal Bowman says he might decide to run again for Congress. Happy days are here again? Not really. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.